You're listening to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast, and I'm your host, Britt Olson. Guided by my own intuition, my intention is to deliver genuine conversations centered around health and wellness, spirituality, self-expression, and culture. In this space, I will provide you with real-life stories, theories, and inspiring perspectives to help you uncover and tap into your own true potential. I'm so grateful you've chosen to tune in with me on this mindful exploration to living a more fluid life through a deeper connection to the soul. Now let's dive into today's journey. Hello, beautiful humans. I hope everyone is having a fantastic week by now. Yes, normally I release my interview episodes on Tuesdays, and today is Thursday. However, given some technical issues that occurred earlier in the week, you guys get this episode on Thursday in place of my weekly digest. So for anyone who thought they weren't getting anything this week, surprise, here you go. And this episode is really, really good, so you are in for a treat. But I think I actually say that about all my episodes as I'm learning. Anyway, today we are going to be chatting all things health, and this is a really important topic to me. For those of you who are not as familiar, I've been on my own personal health journey these last few years. Well, really this last year, couple of years, but it's kind of an ongoing journey in my opinion. And in addition, my husband has been going through his own journey alongside of me and some different diagnoses that he was given recently. For me, understanding what true health really means has been so eye-opening, and not only in how I manage my own health, but in exchange, how I can share the wealth of information I've learned in order to inspire others who may be struggling or don't even know they are struggling just yet. It is such an interesting topic, and today we are being joined by an expert in this field, in my opinion, Jess Erceg. And Jess is actually a good friend of mine from back in my days at Flagler College back in St. Augustine, Florida. So super fun to reconnect with an old friend. Jess and I actually have not seen each other, even though we've been living in the same location as we just in relative closeness of locations, as we recently found out, and recorded this episode over Zoom due to COVID. Could probably talk to her all day. I just am so fascinated with some of her different philosophies, things she understands and practices within her own health. It's really inspiring, and she is truly just very motivational and is really kind of paving the path for her own health journey and female health and working with individuals along the way. She is a nutritional therapy practitioner and clean living consultant. You can find her on Instagram and her website, as she will note in the episode. For anyone who is interested in connecting with her further, I highly suggest you do. She's just great. So I don't want to spoil too much for you guys, but please do note that given, like I said, we recorded via Zoom due to COVID taking place, we weren't able to actually meet up in person, and due to that, we've had a little bit of internet connectivity issues, so please don't mind some of the interruptions, but hey, progress, not perfection, right? And speaking of progress, not perfection, for anyone who feels called to rate and review this podcast, I would be so honored for you to do so, and in exchange, I'm actually giving out my free plant-based recipe ebook, which includes 25 recipes, everything from smoothies, lunches, some pastime favorites, desserts, salad dressings. There's really a whole bunch in there. Some folks who have been making the recipes recently have been so in love with them, so I highly suggest that you rate and review this podcast. That way I can send you my recipe ebook and help you with your own health journey. In order to get that ebook, just simply rate and review the podcast, screenshot it, and send me an email to lovingyourownsoul@gmail.com. In exchange, I will send you the ebook, and if you do so between now and May 31st, I will also enter you into my podcast launch giveaway, in which I'm giving away a gift basket of a ton of different brands, from Four Sigmatic, Liquid IV, Hum Nutrition, what else do I have in there? Athletic Greens, Pura Vida bracelets. There's a whole bunch of fun stuff, but just some fun stuff for me to say thank you to all of you for your support in the launch of my podcast. So do so, send me an email, lovingyourownsoul@gmail.com, and I can get you hooked up in exchange for your kind words. And with that being said, let's get on to today's episode. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I do want to give a shout out to Four Sigmatic, which I'm actually drinking their ashwagandha coffee blend right now. I love to drink it with frothed cashew milk. For those who know me, frothed milk is something I've loved for a very long time, and cashew milk is officially my number one, especially with Four Sigmatic's products, which truly make the coziest of beverages out there. Four Sigmatic foods are the 100 most nutrient-dense, most studied foods on the planet, and they've created them so they're easy to add into your daily routines, making them so easy to not only eat, but talk about and share with your friends and family. They've created so many amazing powders built with a variety of mushrooms, including chaga, reishi, lion's mane. They even have skincare products, which I've tried their face masks, and not only are the masks edible, but they truly smell like you have brownie batter on your face. Unlike brownie batter though, they leave your skin purified, fresh, soft, and new. And aside from the beauty line, they carry an array of elixirs that I drink daily, from chaga mushroom, cacao mixes, matcha lattes, chai tea mixtures, and even protein powders now. For those of you who are interested in trying some yourself, I have a link posted in the show notes where you can receive $15 off your first order from them. So when we are done here today, or even right now, head over to the show notes, check out Four Sigmatic. I promise you are going to fall in love with their products just like I did. Hi, Jess. I'm so excited to have you on my podcast here with me this afternoon.
Hi, I am very excited to be on your podcast. I know you've been wanting to start this for a while, so when you asked me to join, I was like, I would be honored.
Oh, thank you. And our relationship, for those of us listening who don't know, we met back in college at Flagler College in St. Augustine. And it's interesting the way you and I have each kind of been on our own different journeys and then recently reconnected, which has been super fun. But one of my memories of being back in college that I was kind of thinking of the other day is that, no, it's a good one, don't worry. But freshman year, my roommate and still to this day, good friend Shannon, we used to wake up super early before all of our early morning classes, and we would always go work out or try to get a run in. And we were kind of like the weird freshmen who would wake up early and do that. At the same time, you and still to this day, your best friend Chelsea would also be the other two, going and working out, and then equally being in the dining hall, trying to eat healthy and always being the ones like eating healthy and having salads. And I just think what took place at that time and now looking at where we are with our own lives is just such a funny kind of coincidence, but not really, of what we were doing back when we were 19 years old.
I know, it is so funny because I remember that too. It like vividly, like Chelsea and I waking up early to get like, who works out like freshman year of college at like 7 a.m. before classes. And Chelsea and I loved getting salads, like getting salads at the dining hall when everyone else was getting pizza and mac and cheese and loading up. And I'm pretty sure I like never had that. I like, just because I feel like I've always been trying to chase health, but I never really knew what it meant until my later years.
Same. We actually used to ping our good friend Haley and make her on like a Friday go get a plate of French fries for us, because neither one of us wanted to like walk up and get it. So we'd have our salads, and then like one day a week we'd make her go get the French fries that we would share.
Yeah, my weakness was the granola cereal. I don't know if you remember that, but I was obsessed with it. And I thought it was quote unquote healthy because I'm like, oh, it's granola. But I have like a weakness for granola and would eat so much of it.
Totally. Yeah. Granola is so good. And granola is one of those foods that I always considered to be a healthy food until...
And yogurt. And like Greek and low-fat Greek yogurt.
Exactly. And now understanding the ingredients and what's actually behind those foods that really weren't doing my body any good at all. And any little bit of fruit pretty much just disconnected any little bit of nutrients that I was trying to get at that time.
I know. It's crazy. And then it's funny how I don't even know when we started to reconnect, but then to find out that like we're in the same area again, I was like, oh my goodness, I love this.
I know, same here. Hopefully soon, once everything lifts, we can get together in person and actually see one another. But I love the way paths cross and just kind of continue on. But now, with where you sit today, you recently just obtained your NTP certification, or in process of that.
Yes. So I went through the Nutritional Therapy Association and took their now functional nutritional therapy practitioner course, and actually graduated with that in October of 2018.
Okay.
So, yep, which is a holistic base foundation for healing the body through real whole foods and like approaching health from like the foundations. So that definitely, I enrolled in that. I had an inkling in my mind that I wanted to help people. But really, at that time, I was like, oh, I just am sick of Googling and researching. And I was working, with a health coach. And I was like, I just want to know, I want it all in one place where I can just get this education. I didn't agree with, what, public schools are putting, like the RD route, with all the government guidelines. So once I had found out and learned everything that this nutrition program had to offer, I was like sold. So I enrolled in it, and it basically has been kind of life-changing ever since.
I love that. When did your health journey, obviously I think our health journeys have always kind of been a continuous evolution throughout our life, but when would you say that you kind of had like your awakening that led you to go down this path?
It would have been around 2017, if I can remember all of my dates. But I mean, I've always been, like you said, like in college, and everyone always says like, you've always been healthy. To me, healthy now is such a different meaning than, I mean, yeah, well, I ate salads, but I didn't, maybe didn't eat as many carbs, and I worked out. But there's so much more to health now that I just had no idea. And so now I consider myself, fairly healthy, especially because, incorporating mind, like body and soul. But like my true, what I consider myself healthy now, health journey would have been 2017, when I was living in California right before then for 2.5 years. And I had been on birth control ever since high school. So freshman year of high school, I got my first period, my first cycle on my own. And then 9 months had passed and I never got it again. So I went to the doctors and they're like, oh, it's normal. Like, you're very active, because I was dancing, very competitive dancer, 15, 20 hours a week, going, to competitions. I was very active. And they're like, that's normal. That's exactly why you're not getting it. So here, just take the pill. Obviously, I don't know any better when I'm in high school. So I, take the birth control pill. I really didn't have any negative symptoms while taking it. I was just, just taking it, and I quote unquote thought I was getting a cycle. And then when I moved to California, I was like, why am I taking this? Like, I'm, not taking this to avoid getting pregnant. I wasn't seeing anyone at the time. And I was like, it's just, now that I have my own full-time job, and I'm like, this costs me money to like pay for my birth control pills, like insurance only. So I was like, I'm not buying this anymore. I was like, this, and because California is so expensive. So I think like part of that, like all got taken into consideration. And I was like, I don't need this anymore. So I lived out there for 2.5 years. I didn't get a period. And I knew that wasn't normal back then. And I was actually getting testing done, but I still didn't it didn't hit to me like, okay, there has to be like more. Like I was, getting an ultrasound because ovarian cancer ran in my family. I was doing all these like blood works, but everything again came back normal. So then I moved back to Florida and in 2017. And then my mom was like, Jessica, it's not healthy that you're not getting a period. And I was like, I know, but I don't know why. And so then I went back to the doctor and they put me, again, they're like, oh, it's normal. It's fine. Just take the pill. You'll get your period. And so I was like, that just doesn't make sense. But I didn't know what else to do. So I took the pill. This time I responded negatively to it. I was very moody. I would cry over just say something, probably even be a compliment, and I'd start crying. And I was like, this is not me. Like, I feel like I'm normally a happy-go-lucky person, and now I can't stand anything. So I was on that for about 2 months, and then I just quit and was like, I'm going to find out why. And then that's when I started researching. So the start of that health journey is what started in like the end of October, I believe, of 2017.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was just the start of it. So, it's been a whole journey just to, figure out all of that. But I honestly I feel like we as women are so fortunate that we have signs like our cycle that can actually tell us if we have imbalances, because I have so many friends, for instance, once I started like learning this information and I wanted to work with women one-on-one to help balance their hormones, and I would just ask them some questions like, do you guys get like headaches in the middle of the day where you have to take Advil, or are you taking antacids because you're getting heartburn, or are you not pooping every single day? Are you having a hard time losing weight? And just like all these things that I've witnessed on a little girl's trip. So this was just 3 days on the weekend. And they're like, nope, 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 nope. Not one person. Not one person. And I'm like, you drank 4 cups of coffee, because you're so tired. You are popping Tums over there. And like, you're telling me that like you can't poop this weekend. And I'm like, all of these symptoms, we've been so like, we think that they're normal. I mean, they're common, but we think that they're normal. And so when I had all those things too. And I honestly had no idea that not pooping every single day was a sign of health. I mean, until like, what was I, 27 back then? I had no idea that that was a sign of health at like 27.
Same. The pooping especially. So
Yeah.
I have pretty much been constipated since I was a child, like a toddler. I remember my mom used to take me to the doctor because I had such trouble pooping. Like I would get so bloated, my cheeks would turn red, and they had to teach me that it was okay to basically how to have a bowel movement and say goodbye to it down the toilet as a way to help it. But then throughout my life, it was never really talked about. It was more of me being like, gosh, like I can go so long without taking a pooper. Like if I would get really stressed really throughout my mid to late 20s, a lot of different situations, and just it was something that I always never thought about and just always kind of like pushed it behind me until basically up until recently, like a year ago, I was like, this cannot be right. I had gotten off of birth control actually April 2019. So a year ago. Exactly, which is exciting. Yeah, it totally does. Yeah.
Happy 1 year anniversary.
Thank you. So happy. Getting off birth control was a completely different relationship with my body, and like a new relationship with my body and my cycle, and watching my body just naturally kind of kick itself back into gear was so fascinating. Back to bowel movements and everything like that. I had suffered from cystic acne, different types of acne. I would get very severe migraines every now and again, occasional headaches, and just a whole bunch of different things. Back in like college, I remember as kind of more of like a diet thing. Sometimes we would take that poop tea, the smooth move. Because you would feel, so much lighter. You feel like you maybe lost a couple pounds. And then I actually found that tea through that and would start using that to help myself, not understanding how detrimental not having bowel movements were to my system until recently. And now I have a whole new relationship with using the bathroom. It's so great. So I actually had a stool test done 4 months ago, I think. I don't know if you've ever had one done, but such an interesting look at your health and what's going on inside of there.
Oh, I think stool tests are key, especially because when we start like health journeys to it, a lot of us, we do like transitioning, to health, or like, focusing on quality and and reducing our toxic load, which I know we'll get into, but it's like, sometimes you're doing all those things and you might you do feel better, but like, you're like, why am I doing this sometimes? But having something that pinpoints and shows, oh no, you have an imbalance. Like maybe you have some parasites, or maybe you have high levels of bad bacteria or small intestinal bacteria overgrowth or something like that. And that's what, the stool test can show you. So I think it's huge. And it's actually something that I will be implementing in my practice, because I think that it's just very, like you said, very fascinating. And then just having, the answer. So you can our gut health is everything. Like, that's, that will, help us eliminate, that will, balance our hormones and our mood, like our serotonin, like all that's, made in our gut, our immune system. So when you really get into our gut health is everything, but our poop can also tell us so much too.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And now I've officially been having a bowel movement consistently for maybe every day for 4 or 5 months now. And it's like Such a great feeling. In return to, I always intuitively, just in looking at my skin health and things, because of course more of the X, which is a sign of poor health as well. It's not just that you need better beauty products or certain antibiotics, which will actually wreak more havoc on it later. But now seeing everything start improving from that. I actually had my husband get a stool test done recently as well. So that way, he could get a better insight. But before we jump into all of that, you got off birth control and then you started doing a lot of your own personal research is kind of where your journey started. Is that right?
Yes. So I started doing personal research. I was listening to podcasts, which is why I also have so much love for what podcasts offer, because you can get a lot of like free education out there. And you get to we were talking earlier, that you just get to hear people's stories and journeys and just know that you're not alone on this and that there is a root and there are answers to why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And so I was just doing all the research, and then I finally wanted to learn it all in one place, but I had also hired a coach at the same time, because I feel like by learning all this information too, and like knowing it and learning it firsthand, sometimes you just need, or some, depending, you look at personalities and going above and beyond. Some people, just need that accountability or an extra set of eyes of not seeing exactly what I see, because we tell ourselves so many things in our head. And at this point, I don't even know that I need to even work on my mental health or, tapping into the inner work. So I'm just like only solely focusing on food. And I had hired a coach at the same time, which was extremely helpful because it put me on a plan, to be like, okay, we'll try this week, let's do this, let's cut back here and exercise and all that. So that was only like 2-3 months out of the time I was doing my nutrition program. And then afterwards I was like, okay, well, let me write out this nutrition program, make all these changes, because part of my nutrition program too, we learned something called the functional evaluation. So you can actually palpate spots on the body that associate with different systems and organs. So like our liver and our gallbladder, like our stomach acid and all of that. And depending on like a tenderness rating, if it's like really high, we know that we need to focus on that and our bodies are deficient in certain nutrients. So then we would put a supplement in the mouth and repalpate that same point. And most of the time the point would come down, and sometimes it wouldn't, because your body doesn't need either that nutrient or that supplement is just not, your body's just not responding to it. But it eventually, like people's numbers, I just did this the other month in my internship, and it's amazing. I was like, 7. And because I was nearing my cycle. So some of the hormone points were very tender, but as soon as I put in some like essential fatty acids, the points like went like down. I was like, are you touching me? So it's very fascinating. So I was like, it's amazing what like our body can actually provide, like as far as like signs, especially when it comes to supplements. When I quote unquote thought I was healthy forever ago, all I was buying was protein powders and supplements, like before I started this journey from, like your bodybuilding companies, like bodybuilding.com. And I was spending hundreds of dollars on them. So I was like, I'm over supplements. Like they probably did nothing because I was not digesting anything at the time. And then I was taking all the wrong supplements. Like I was like, I'm not taking any like digestive support. I wasn't taking anything to stimulate, stomach acid or digestive enzymes. So that program taught me a lot about supplements and like how to support, our liver and our gallbladders, which are not only a part of digestion, but they're also a part of detoxification, and then, everything else from there. So once I did that research, and going through the program, I kind of and worked with the health coach at the beginning of the year. I kind of took back my own health and got my cycle on my own of doing all that for like a year and a half.
Amazing. It's so interesting what you say about the supplements, of how you at first were taking so many of them and realize now later on down the line that you probably weren't digesting them. And you were just kind of shooting out hundreds of dollars of not understanding.
Disgusting.
Yeah. It's so crazy. I recently just started taking digestive enzymes per consulting with a holistic nutritionist and nurse, I think would be her title, upon getting my stool test and everything like that. And I can totally tell a difference. And just even getting that right supplement regime for your body and specifically to your body and to your needs. I feel like in the health and wellness industry, there's so much information out there. It can be so overwhelming and just really mismarketed, depending who you are and who maybe your mentors are, or who you're even just looking up to on social media and following their own journey and thinking that relates to your own, whereas it may not even relate to yourself at all.
Yeah. And I mean, supplements are needed, and I'm not like, they are most hands down needed, but I feel like whole foods can do so much too. And it's very healing, and supplements do have like a time and place as well. Like they, definitely when you're going through a therapeutic healing protocol, like, if you're, for instance, get a gut test and you have these like bad bacteria, you're most likely going to need supplements, to kill it. I did when I, got my stool test. Like I had gotten my cycle, but I then ended up doing a stool test and it told me I had bad bacteria. And I was like, oh, this is so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so they definitely have a time and place for like when you take them. And I do think you might be able to come off of them, because I did eventually, after my protocol of killing bacteria, I came off of them because I was like, I can't look at another supplement. But then things change, like in our lives. And then I went through this whole mental, self-growth, personal development journey, and it was very taxing and very stressful for me. So I noticed my poops were off and like other signs. And so I started support, and that sign of stress depletes, stomach acid. And then of course from there is a cascade from, putting other things out of balance in our body. So I started taking supplements again, and I'm using it as a support, to get me through, some of the times, depending on where I'm at, and knowing that like, it's not like a forever thing, and just having it as like a tool in like my toolbox.
Totally. What are some of the current supplements that you're taking right now?
Yes. So I am taking a digestive enzyme as well. I also take a probiotic. I take it's called beta TCP, but has like beets and taurine, and has ingredients in it to be able to help break down fat and support the liver and the gallbladder, which I feel like that is one supplement that I notice helps me with my bowel movements. And then I do take some prebiotics right now. And then I take just some vitamin C with everything going on, with like supporting the immune system. But I try not to overwhelm myself with, too many, but I do focus on like the gut ones for sure. Oh, and I take it's not fish oil, it's black currant seed oil. So it's one that I actually tested really well for when I did functional evaluation for my hormones. So, and I think, swapping out essential fatty acids, but all supplements basically all supporting for gut health, which then supports, cardiovascular health, and then hormone health and immune health and everything else.
Yeah, it's definitely all linked together. Something I learned recently or a few months ago about probiotics is how most probiotics, and I hope I'm saying the correct verbiage, feel free to correct me, but most probiotics that are out there on the market do not actually pass through to our small intestine, I believe it is. Which one are you on, and have you kind of gone through a different probiotic journey?
You want to look for spore-based probiotics, so they actually withstand your stomach acid. A lot of the times you'll see, they don't survive, and that's why you got to buy them refrigerated. That's not the case. Like our stomach acid is so acidic. So right there, that just doesn't make sense. So you want to make sure that you can actually find a probiotic that actually withstands that. So then you also get the benefits of it. And so the one that I love, it is practitioner grade. It's microbiome, and it's their Megaspore probiotics, but their sister company I don't know if it's a sister company, but Krish, I don't know how to say his last name. The guy who helped create the probiotics, he also partnered with Just Thrive, and they have a probiotic that is spore-based that is really good that you can also get through their website and ordered. Megaspore, you can get it through a practitioner, but they now have made it a lot easier where you can get it like drop shipped, where before I would have to order it, then I would have to ship it to someone. But now it's a lot easier where you can go onto the practitioner's account, order it yourself, and then have it shipped to you. Because it's very powerful, and it's my favorite probiotic.
That's amazing.
I give it to my dog.
Do you really?
I do. He does get it.
That's so cool. Do you give him probably not a full dose, or do you give him the same?
I give him, so I'm actually taking 2 right now. And he's taking 2. He's 100 pounds. Yeah. So, but usually like a half, depending on how, like if they're, the 30-pound range, I get like half, and then in between that, like 1, but since he's so large, I give him 2, and he has allergies. So I figured it would support his immune system and gut health as well.
Absolutely. It's all the same. I mean, we're all animals
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Earlier, you mentioned how within taking supplements and everything, it's really not just the supplement support that our body needs, but it's really full realm of all facets of health, and particularly getting proper food and nutrition and everything like that. I know kind of typically most people would label you that you've always been a healthy individual your entire life, as you noted previously, but that your own journey of health has a different definition now than what it did 10 years ago, really even 3 years ago. How has your relationship with food and nutrition kind of evolved, and what health benefits have you seen lately?
Oh man, so many. So I was raised on a standard American diet of fast food. I mentioned I danced a lot. So I was literally dancing, like I started when I was 3, but then as soon, I immediately went into all these dance programs and was dancing till late at night. So my mom was not a big cooker. If it was Hamburger Helper out of a box. And I would go to Burger King or McDonald's literally every night, like after dance. So I was huge standard American diet, fast food growing up. And then once I got into high school, I started partying then. And I'm pretty sure I got my freshman 15 in high school than I did in college, which is why I think I was so healthy in college too, or quote unquote health, what I thought was healthy in college. And I really started to work out in high school. And that's when that started, because I had quit dance because I was partying and I was like, oh, I want a life. I want to party. So I told my mom, I was like, I don't want to do dance anymore. And just started to party. And I did do cheerleading, but it was not nearly as active as what I was. And then I started gaining weight, and I was like, I was very uncomfortable. None of my friends were gaining weight. It was just seemed to have been me. So I was barely eating. I wasn't calorie counting back then, but I was eating progressive soups or lean cuisine, pizzas, and, low calorie foods.
Mm-hmm.
Which now makes complete sense why my hormones were so out of balance. But, it didn't back then. And then when I got into, and I was eating more salads and such. And then when I got into college, I don't think I tracked in college as far as food, but I was eating what I could from the dining hall, and I'm pretty sure I ate a salad for lunch and dinner every single day. I'm pretty sure I don't think I deviated from that. And then when Chelsea and I got our own place, I'm pretty sure we eat the same thing every single day. We baked chicken, which disgusts me. I love chicken, but I'm give me the thigh or the wing now, but we would bake chicken breast and just do salt and pepper and have carrots. And literally I would do honey mustard and she would do ranch. And this was my lunch every single day. And yes, it is real food. And then I was working out a ton still, or working out early in college, and Chelsea was a huge runner. I was never a runner. So she got me into running, and I would run and we would bike. St. Augustine's such a small town. So we would bike to Publix. So I was very active then too. And so again, just eating real food, but not as much still. And, eating low fat yogurts and putting raisins in it. So I did have some concept of getting some healthy foods and fibers in, but still not what my hormones needed by any means. And then I get, obviously a little bit older, and body image is still a thing. And so I start tracking macros, because I think I'm just to my sister, I'm how come I can't lose weight, or how come you can lose weight? And I remember her just saying well, you gotta, do more, because this is what we've been ingrained, you gotta do more cardio. And because I was at one point, after college, I just stopped, doing cardio, and I was oh, but I don't want to do cardio. I hated it. And so, but I would force myself to do it. And so then I got a macro coach and was tracking macros. And from there, it was just a very poor relationship with food, because then at that point I'm I can eat whatever, because I had restricted myself for so long. So now it's oh, you mean I need carbs before I work out, but let me have a Pop-Tart because that's a carb. So I was, eating, I'm no joke. I would go into CrossFit in California and I'd be oh, I just had a Pop-Tart, literally brag. And I would have to I would be drinking so much coffee. At work, we had an espresso maker. I'd make 2 espressos before I even went to the gym. And then I would have pre-workout. And so I was just my body was so tired and it was telling me all these things, but I was ignoring it because I knew how to instantly fix it very quick within a second, and then feel fine, and then, sleep it off and do the same thing over again. So then I was, tracking macros. And when I was out in California, I was working out 2 hours a day, waking up in the morning and taking Zep for a run because California is like beautiful. So I'm like, I'm going to run along the coast. And I have always, from dancing to working out, it's just been like second nature to me. Like waking up at 4 a.m. to go for a run, to then, go to work, to then go to CrossFit for 2 hours. And so, but towards the end, and when I was working with macro coaches, I remember, because I just actually looked at my food journal, and my highest fat was 34 grams a day on workout days. And I was a workoutaholic. So I worked out every single day, except for maybe one day I was forced to rest because the gym wasn't open on Sundays. And I'm sure I probably went for a run, but I considered that a rest day. And I would get maybe 90 grams of fat, but that's one day. It's like, and then like my carbs were severely low. So I just had like always thinking that one macro was bad. Like you can't have fat and carbs together, but fat is usually the, demon, because that is what actually makes us fat. I mean, it's been a huge battle. And I remember I remember this vividly, being in California, and I had gotten a roommate because it was so expensive out there and my lease was up. And I was like, if I want to be able to go places and have extra money, I have to get a roommate. But when I moved out there, I didn't know anyone. So I got a place by myself. So I got a roommate with a girl that I worked with. And I remember she was gone like a lot. And I had the Len and Larry's cookies, and I would just binge eat them because my body was like hungry, and I was having all these cravings. And I don't even know if I've like ever really like told people this, but I'm like, I would eat one. I would have a whole box. I would eat one and I'm like, I have another. I'm just going to finish it. And I would literally eat 3 or 4 of them. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just so unhealthy. And like something then had like clicked, like this can't be.
Totally.
Right? I didn't know what to do. Like I thought that was normal because I was working with a macro coach. I was, trying to dial in like nutrition, and I was working out, and that's what everyone told me was healthy. Like you work out and you watch what you eat, and you'll be healthy. And I was hardly drinking too. Like I was never, after high school, like even in college, I feel like I would party, but I was never like I was in high school, and I just eventually got sick of drinking. So I was never a huge partier or like drank a lot anyways. So I was like, oh, it's not the, beer or wine that I'm drinking, that's like making me gain weight. So I was like, there has to be more. Like I just don't feel good. And I remember I traveled a lot for work. And so I had a poor, like I would have to the hotel so I could bring it, because I would go on week-long stints of like traveling for work, and people would always like make comments like, oh, she can't eat that, and like eat that, like this, or like she's too restrictive. And I'm just like, but I feel like there's such a fine balance now, because now I'm like, I absolutely love food, and I love going out to eat now, and realizing that like, oh my gosh, I can get so much food when you actually go to dine out too, and I don't have to be, like, I feel like I missed out a ton. Like I wasn't going out with people because I was like, oh well, it's not gonna like fit my macros, or I'm gonna eat beforehand. And so I just feel like there's so much now looking back on it, that even when people are like, just eat one bite or whatever, and I'm like, no, I can't, like, it's just like, I can't believe that.
It was so controlling over your life.
Yeah. And it's insane to like think about that, because I was eating, real food too at the same time. And then I finally stopped working with coaches. And then when I had gone through, or when I worked with my hormone coach, and she had actually just done keto, and like talking about like healthy fats. And when I was going through the program and we were talking about real whole food, I was like, I ditched the tracking, because I was like, why am I going to track this kale? I was like, this is kale. So like just something like switched in my mind. I was like, why am I tracking this? Like, why am I tracking this sweet potato? It just seemed so like, and plus I had been tracking for so long that I was like, this is just, it was very stressful. And so she was like, okay, well, let's just give up tracking. Because she was actually, well, let's track to make sure you're getting, because once you switch from like processed foods to eating real foods too, it's like, I don't know how much like oils add up and stuff like that. So just gave up tracking and added healthy fats. And I feel like I was no longer, another thing I did was I was no longer eating packs of gum a day. Like when I was out in California, everyone knew to come to my desk. I would have packs on packs and packs of gum every single day. Like at least 2 packs of gum. Like people would go out and smoke. Mine was, I would chew a piece of gum and I would get rid of it, because I was either avoiding being hungry or I was having these cravings and all of that. So once I started like adding the healthy fat in and just focusing on real health food, I feel like I started to find, like, I had this almost like peace with food. Like I was no longer having sugar cravings. I was no longer fearing fat or fearing foods like in general. Like if I wanted a cupcake or I wanted a brownie, I just focused on ingredients and quality. And then I was like, oh, I feel so like I can have this. I am not going to get fat. It all makes a difference. So it definitely was, I guess, a long journey of trial and error, and finally getting that aha moment of, what makes me feel good, and just kind of listening to my body from that point.
It's such a journey too. I feel you on so many levels there. First of all, Len and Larry's cookies are to die for.
The birthday cake were
really
my favorite.
good.
Yeah, I know. But don't look at the ingredients now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel you though. It was like, we just like restricted so much that then binge eating, it just kind of suddenly like came out because your body, it's almost that natural animalistic instinct in a way, mixed with cravings that we've kind of been built upon per other poorly processed foods and everything like that, how it just comes out and how our bodies hit a point where it's like, I need food, or even mentally, like I've been restricting myself for so long that I just hit this breaking point of like, I can't do it anymore. And I need to. With you, with the tracking and stopping tracking and everything like that, did you kind of feel as if a weight was suddenly lifted off of yourself, or did any other areas of your life equally kind of start improving at that time?
Oh yeah. As soon as I stopped tracking and eating real food, my body like instantly lost all inflammation so fast.
Wow.
I had lost so much weight at that time, and I wasn't even tracking. And back then it's funny because people would be like, oh my God, you look so good. And when we as women are commented that we look so good when we're thin, but then as soon as we gain like 5 pounds and it's so noticeable, like no one ever comments that like you look good. Like you usually see it when like you lose weight and people are posting like before and afters. And I had given up before and afters. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I haven't stepped on a scale in now it's been 1.5 years. And when I go to the doctors, I'm like, don't tell me. Like, don't tell me. And so it definitely has been, yeah.
That's so cool. I love that you haven't stepped on a scale in so long. That's really amazing.
For me, when I stepped on a scale, I had to when I went to the gynecologist for a routine checkup because my insurance was actually paying me to go. So I was like, well, I'm going to go. And I went and I was like, don't tell me what I weigh. When she saw me, because she hadn't seen me in a couple of years, because I had gone to California and came back, and she wasn't the same one that I saw. And she's like, do you know you've gained some weight? And then I was like, do you know I got my period? Like, that is so much more important to me than like me. And I was like, I told the nurse, don't tell me, please don't tell me. I was like, I'm not concerned with my weight right now. If anything, my body's still trying to find a balance, and it takes longer than just a month. But when I had first lost all that weight, like when people had made comments about it, I eventually then at that point now, when I look back at it, I was not absorbing the nutrients that I was eating. Like I had lost the weight because of the inflammation and the inflammatory foods that I was eating. But then once I was able to focus on digestion and absorb the real food that I was eating, my body was starting, to gain weight and feel healthy. And that is when I think, of course, is when I like got my cycle. So then I gained weight and then I kept gaining it. And I was like, oh, this is, then that was like a whole mental thing of like me having to be like, okay with me gaining weight. Like I was more than the number in the scale. I was more than, anything else. And so that was a whole new like thing that I had to work through. But now like a whole nother like 6 months later, my body is finding like a whole new balance of like, eating real food.
Totally. How was that body journey for you, just in terms of almost having to kind of like fall in love with yourself or accept yourself differently than how you had previously kind of been conditioned to accept yourself? And it's almost like a rewiring of the brain and what society tells us to be.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it towards the end, because now I don't even think really about like my body image or weight. I feel like it is a lot of deep work that really I needed to work through. But I didn't know that back when I had first started. And so I would luckily vent to friends about, having, body issues and gaining weight, because I feel like that's a huge first step of, being able to talk about it and not, be in your head and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm gaining weight, or these clothes don't fit. But it's honestly, I just kept telling myself like I'm doing this. Because I'm trying to get my psych, like this is not, there was another reason why like my body was not healthy. So I was telling myself, like I'm doing this because I have a greater good. Like I want to in the long run feel good. This is long-term health. This is not, like immediate, like I don't care really what my body looks like, or if I'm in a size 0 or size 2 pants anymore. It definitely was not easy. And then I would go back and I would actually look at photos that I thought I looked fat in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't look fat in that at all. And I literally caught myself. My sister sent me photos of my birthday weekend to put into a calendar for Mother's Day. And when I originally saw that photo, I was like, oh, my face looks fat. But then I saw it when she said it to me, and I was like, I don't look fat in that photo. Like, it's like, so I still struggle with like sometimes looking at photos and being like, oh, like you know, you just don't look the same. But then I like look back and I'm like, man, you're really hard on yourself. And I'm like, and I think it just all depends on like where we're at in life, but just realizing that's probably a deeper meaning to why we don't have a healthier relationship with our body than actually how we look like in general, what we think other people think of us. Cause no one cares what we look like truly. Like no one deep down cares. They care about themselves. So I think once you like realize that too, you can lift that pressure off of you as well.
100%. It's so interesting too, how literally nobody cares. It's just all these misconceptions that we keep in our head and like these fear-based thoughts of when we look in the mirror, oh, how is somebody going to view me or how are they going to judge me differently? It's such an uphill battle. And as women in particular, it's just so hard for all of us. I've been on probably for the first time in my life where I'm not worried about counting calories. And I was always such a calorie counter and somebody who, nothing wrong with the way I was raised or how I grew up. It was really kind of just par of what was trendy. And then like the Special K diet.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Is that like,
I ate Special
hopefully
K
they're
too.
getting
The
sued.
bars, yeah, right.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. All the Special K and like, oh, I'll have whatever it was, like a bowl of cereal, a bar, and like one meal a day. Who does that? Like, it's so terrible. But then even, I mean, I was always conditioned of like an avocado, for instance, like, oh, I'll only have just a little bit of avocado because I don't want too much fat. Like that would be bad. And now I'm like, I'm going to eat the entire half of an avocado and I'm going to love it. If not, you know, it's so interesting how it all changes. But do you think everything that you went through has kind of better set you up for where you are today? Or is there anything particularly that you know now that maybe you wish you knew along your journey?
I will always wish that I have known this forever ago, because once you feel really good, you're like, oh, like I wish I felt this good forever ago. But I also don't think I wouldn't have done this journey if I wasn't feeling the way that I am. But I also think all of those experiences have taught me so much and I've learned so much. And now I can pinpoint like at what point of my life, like maybe where I was struggling or not struggling, because we're never perfect. Even if I was eating this healthy back then, I would have had, gone through the self-development and growth journey that I would have had to gone through. Because once I switched my diet, I knew, and I was feeling amazing. There was still something missing and I knew it, and I couldn't pinpoint it. And then eventually I went through an internship and I was like, oh boy. So I had a lot of like deep things that I was like opening up, but I wouldn't take back any of it. I mean, I wish I could tell my younger self, like, I wish you would have enjoyed, life a little bit more and not have been so rigid and missed out on like eating ice cream if you went out with, friends, or not being like, oh, it doesn't fit my macros, or, just all of that little stress that was so unnecessary. But again, I feel like it's what makes all of us unique with where we come at in life. And I feel like we all can relate. Like, you counted calories, I counted calories, like so many of us. And so that's what makes our connection, a lot more authentic.
Totally. It was so funny. I remember when my now husband, Dan, and I first started dating, I think maybe he was at my apartment or we were at his, and he was like, oh, I'm going to stop and get ice cream and eat a bowl of ice cream on the couch or something like that. Do you want some? And I remember I was horrified. I was like, what? No, I, number one, can't eat ice cream in front of you. I like you. You're probably, maybe was my boyfriend at that point. Number two, I was like, who just like goes and eats that much ice cream? Like, you can't do that. And then he was like, come on, just have a little. And I had a couple spoonfuls. And sure enough, I didn't die. The world didn't end. And it's just so funny. Like, we lived so restricted to just what we thought was correct and everything like that. And now I just feel so much more free, so much more healthy. I don't worry about counting calories, and it's just not even a thing for me. It's I eat what I want to eat. And at the same time, I feel like my body in and of itself has finally come into its true power. Yeah. And it's like everything just connects now.
Yeah.
It's so cool. There's a lot of food out there that is deemed like the healthy processed foods, so to say. Of those, what would be for anybody who maybe is eating a lot of that? And I mean, it happens per, lifestyle or different situations and things, but what would be some of the ones that you would either be first to remove, or even some things that are labeled healthy that really come nowhere close to that?
Yeah, that's where greenwashing falls in when they say, all these things that claim like GMO free and natural and low fat, when it doesn't cause heart disease or whatever, which really then have ingredients in them that are chemicals. As far as, I still eat processed foods. But I limit how much I have just because of how I feel, and my body naturally thrives off of real food now. But I focus on ingredients in general. And it's so weird because I think everyone's like, there's literally a cleaner ingredient snack to everything we are eating today. Like, if someone's eating, and this comes to mind because my cousin was eating it today, but the white cheddar popcorn from, I forget the name of, like that black and yellow
the
and
Smart Food, I think.
Smart Foods popcorn. Yeah. There is I believe it's lesser evil. There is a popcorn, that makes it safer, talking like toxic products on, but it has better ingredients, real food ingredients, like not canola oil, soybean oil, any of those inflammatory oils that end up wreaking havoc on digestion and just causing inflammation in the body and showing up in all sorts of things. Like what it would do to me might be different from what it did to you. Like even Cheez-Its, like Simple Mills has cheddar crackers and they have rosemary and sea salt. Like they have a lot of just all the crackers that are really good made with real ingredients. There's I feel like there's just everything that someone could possibly want. There is a safer version, like one with less chemicals in it. Mm-hmm. I actually did create a guide right before back to school last August. My friend was like, okay, like it's, time to, buy the kids all these snacks again. And it's hard to switch families over, to eating their diets when kids are so accustomed to eating. Like, I totally get it. And I don't think cutting out all snacks is, like no one's going to do that. I don't do that. Like I still like to enjoy my snacks, but I do think quality matters. So I created a whole guide of literally 90 snacks, like over 90 snacks that kids are eating today that are better swaps to, that makes that huge difference in how maybe the children are performing or how we are, performing in our jobs or, our moods and all of that. But I definitely think snacks are still snacks. Healthier snacks are still snacks. And I think, they definitely have, again, their time and place as well. And they don't replace actually eating real whole nutrient dense foods like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or 2 larger meals, whatever works for that person. But they definitely are also a part of our lives too and enjoyable for parties and stuff.
Totally. I love some of the guides and things that you've put out and just a lot of your Instagram content, and you just have so much information that you've put together for people. Where can people find you or maybe kind of like sign up to download some of your information?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. It's all Modernally Balanced. So MODERNALLY _ and then balanced with a D. And then my website, and there's guides usually all linked through my bio or the LinkedIn profile. And then I have a website also, and it's modernlybalanced.com. And then there's free guides and stuff there as well, which cover everything from reducing your toxins, to balancing your hormones, or just, getting them out of your household as well, because that's another issue or thing that I had tackled once I, started balancing my hormones. I was like, wait, it's more than just what I'm putting in my mouth, like in my body. It's on my body from plastics too. It's in the cookware. Like what? Like a quick jumpstart guide. It's all there of everything that will include everything from food to lower tox living to everything else.
I love that. As we just are kind of looking at trying to live, lower tox living and everything like that, kind of reducing the amount of toxins that we come in contact with on a daily basis, obviously, not only through food and the chemicals that are injected in foods and everything like that, but the actual toxins that we find in our daily lives or even in our homes. Where do we typically kind of come into toxins, and where are they most found in our homes?
Everything. Probably not a response anyone wants to hear, but it is true. It is very hard for us to actually not be in contact with a lot of toxins in our home. And that even goes to the paint on our walls, to the flooring that's in our house, to the shower curtain that's in our bathroom, the couch and bed that we sleep on. But those are usually the ones that are kind of more so out of our control and a lot more expensive to change. So the ones that make a huge impact by just making small changes are as far as beauty products. There's a lot of endocrine disrupting chemicals that are in them, from phthalates to parabens to fragrance, and known carcinogens as well that we're putting on our body. I mean, 5% of our cancers today are attributed to like genetics, while the remaining 90 to 95% is environment and lifestyle. So, and that even goes to like breast cancer. A lot of times if you speak to these women who have breast cancer, it's not related. If you ask them if it's hereditary, they're like, no, my mom never had it. My grandmother never had it. And it's because of the environmental toxins and the toxic exposure that we're being exposed to today. And that's even from our cleaning products. We're inhaling, you know, all the fumes and bleaches and stuff like that that we're using. And then your cookware, like there's toxins being leached from your cookware. And the problem with these is that they're forever chemicals, meaning it's hard for them to actually degrade in our body to break them down. And we can't excrete them as quickly as we can pesticides, or the pesticides that are on our food, you know, we can excrete and make a difference within a week. So it's this overburden of toxic chemicals that we come across every single day. Basically, there's so many things in our house too. And most of us, especially right now, we're spending like 90% of our time inside. So even if you can't do anything, open the windows, you know, like let some of those VOCs and mold spores, all that, like let some fresh air in and let all of that get out. But it is very important, I would say, after changing your food, what you put on your body. So the products that you're using. And then plastics and cookware would definitely be one of my next, just because of the hormone disruption and the cancer causing ingredients and how they stick around forever.
Wow. That's crazy. Are there certain brands that make like tox free cookware, or just different forms of cookware?
So for cookware, I love cast iron, and stainless steel. So those are my two recommendations. Again, a lot of people like non-stick, but if we just use some oil, like what, you know, like fat is not bad for us. We use some olive oil, avocado oil. I promise your food's not going to stick. And cast iron and stainless steel will last you forever, where these Teflon and nonstick pans, they get so many scratches on them. And that's the problem. Then you're getting those PFAS chemicals that are being leached into your food, and then you're eating that. And those don't, and so it just seems so wasteful. Like a cast iron pan too is pretty inexpensive. It's like $25, I feel like, for a pan, and it's very easy to take care of. And people have their cast iron pans from like their great grandmother. And I'm like, man, I wish I had that, but they
Right.
do just fine. And I bought mine new, and it is perfect. So those are my two favorite cookware.
Cool. What about our like drinkware and cups and everything like that? Kind of same page.
Yeah, so I would recommend avoiding plastic water bottles. A lot of people want to avoid plastic because of the environment, but it's also impacting our bodies. BPA, it, you know, is a hormone disruptor. And then if it says BPA free, it usually also phthalates is a plastic. That's another hormone disruptor. Or it has BPS and BPF replacement chemicals for BPA, which have just the same amount of harm to the body as BPA. So why I say this with water is that when we're buying water in water bottles, that water bottle, like you may not have it sitting outside in the heat, but heat is one factor that actually increases the plastics to leach their chemicals. And most likely that water that you bought was sitting in a warehouse that was very hot, or exported or like imported into a truck that has been really hot. So at one point in time, you might not be leaving it in your car and then drinking it. It has been exposed to heat and you're getting those chemicals. And then water in general you can use the EWG website, and they have a tap water database. You can put your zip code in and you can find the specific chemicals that are in your water. So a lot of them are like chlorine, fluoride. There's a lot of heavy metals in our water. Again, all having impacts on our body. I mean, water is the most important nutrient. A lot of like people who have lost hair switch their shower filter, and they're no longer losing their hair because of the water that they've swapped out. So you can use that database to then find a filter that would be perfect for your area, because sometimes, you know, water filters are not cheap either, but it's definitely another area of concern. I hope I haven't scared you with all these toxins, because it can be overwhelming. But
Totally.
literally the smallest, just change your, and then, you know, I always say once you run it, like cookware, unless you're using nonstick and you have the scrapes, toss them out and get some new cookware. But as soon as you run out of your face wash, just, you know, swap to another face wash. As soon as, you know, you run out of, or like, because water is another thing, like you're not running out of water, but if you know, don't want to be buying water bottles anymore, you know, look into getting, you know, a water filter, and like making small swaps, you know, setting it up for maybe every couple months or every month or even once a year. And it all adds up, and it really does make a big difference.
Wow, that's crazy. And we'll link to in the show notes that link that you gave about the water filter website, because I think that would be so fascinating, scary as well. It definitely can feel really overwhelming, especially when you think about the cushions on your couch or your sheets. I mean, even our laptops, everything has toxins on it.
Yeah, the EMFs, radiating. We're both wearing wired headphones right now, but the AirPods, those are literally in between, like there's no wires and it's just penetrating through your brain. And actually, I do have a pair, and I had to sell my Apple Watch because I got wrist pain on my left wrist. It was only my left wrist. And as soon as I stopped wearing it, I was no longer getting wrist pain. And then my EarPods, I was getting burning sensations in my ears. But I had no idea. It's kind of like when I tell people to look at their products and minimize fragrance. And then once they smell fragrance again, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so strong. But we just are so exposed to it in so many different products that we just have no idea. And it's like the same thing with AirPods. I'm like, you get rid of those for a month, put them back in, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like you'll notice a difference. It's like, so it's kind of like gluten. Eliminate gluten and dairy for a little bit, and you reintroduce it, and you might, notice that you're now breaking out or something,
We had reduced, my husband, he has an autoimmune disease. So we went salt, oil, and sugar-free, obviously still had fruit, but all processed sugar and everything like that. And certain oils we did have as well. But it was interesting, upon reducing all salt from the diet and then bringing it back, mostly just sea salt and pink Himalayan salt, how salty things tasted. I actually can barely withstand hot sauce now. It almost just feels like it's burning my tongue, or certain chips that you used to eat, you take a bite of it and you're like, oh my God, like it literally burns your mouth.
Yeah. It's so crazy. When I now have, because I will eat, like, I feel like it's nice. I now know how my body responds to when I have inflammatory food, processed foods, or gluten. And I'm lucky in a sense of not having to go to the hospital because I have celiac. I'm fairly I take a supplement when I'm going to eat gluten, and I eat it and I enjoy it, and I not let the mindset of be like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. But I usually will wake up hungover, and instantly my belly just feels so it just hurts. It doesn't hurt in the sense of I feel 6 knives in my stomach. It's almost like it has this expanded feeling, and I'm like, oh, it's uncomfortable. But I mean, it happens, and I'm on the holidays, I'm not going to be that person where I'm cooking my own meal, bringing my own little, and if I had to, when I had to do a healing protocol, I had to, 60 days, not have any of that. But now that I'm, finding a new balance and just supporting my body once every few months is not going to kill me if I eat a brownie with canola oil in it.
Right. Totally. And thank goodness for understanding certain supplements and things that we can kind of help offset within our bodies. For someone who is maybe feeling super overwhelmed at all the toxins that we've unknowingly ingested in our bodies, are there any certain foods or herbs or supplement combinations that can help kind of strip some of those toxins out of our organs?
Yes. So I definitely think, so we need to always, before we detox, we always have to support the foundations and make sure that our detox pathways are open, because if we don't do that, we can just recirculate the toxins in our body. And some of the ways that we detox are, well, poop. So are you pooping every day? If you're not pooping every day, then we need to, get to identify why you're not pooping every day. Most likely we are all peeing every day, and sweating. I could never sweat. I would never, unless I went into a sauna. I could not work out and sweat. And so obviously my detox pathways wasn't big. But once you do that by changing what you're eating, and how you're eating, and, taking stuff like digestive enzymes. And then once you do that, there are additional supplements that you can take in order to get rid of these toxins, like heavy metals that we're exposed to because of our water or our makeup, or, the parasites or pathogens. And usually you can take, right now I'm actually doing a Killbind sweat, and I have cracked heels. And I actually just learned that that is a sign of heavy metals in the body from a naturopathic weekends that I took through my internship. And I had always wondered why. I'm like, why do I have cracked heels? And I would go get pedicures, and the people would always tell me, your feet are dry, and just razor them off. And I loved that. But I'm like, okay, now why do I have this?
Wow, that's crazy. That's
it's
so
very
interesting.
It is all very fascinating how all the different medicines and Chinese medicine and, you know, just ties together. But I am taking a kill bind spot. So taking something that actually like kills, it's called biocidin, that actually kills any bacteria or pathogens. And then a binder. So it's got like charcoal in there, and there's a few other ingredients in there. And that's detox, which will then bind the toxins. Mm-hmm. And then when I sweat, they will come out. And I'm actually doing this little journey of I'm documenting my heels to see what happens. And so we'll see. I do notice I'm actually getting a little bit better. And so I'm like, this is all very weird. But
that's so cool. I can't wait to hear the progress.
Yeah. My before photos, I'm like, oh, it's kind of gross looking at someone's heels. But I was like, everyone loves before and after. See, look, I take before and afters of my skin now and like of my like body parts of like what's like changing. I don't take before and afters of my like how thin am I, like, you know, how much weight have I lost. So it's definitely, yeah.
That's so funny.
I know.
I love that. I'm interested to learn more about binders because for me, in re-regulating my system and having daily bowel movements and everything for me just feels like completely life-changing. And I'm so, in a way, almost now scared of not having them and understanding what's going on in my body for not having them. So I've actually been a little fearful or cautious about taking binders, and that I've heard that they can cause constipation and things like that. Have you ever experienced that with them?
I have not. And you do have to take them away from food. So like when I take the Kill supplement, I take it away from food, and I take it 45 minutes before the binder. And then I take the binder. And then, you know, I do have a sauna. And so I'll sit in my sauna for an hour, and then and then by that time after I'm like getting ready, then like I can eat. But you definitely want to wait at least an hour or a couple hours in between meals for them. There's also other supplements. I believe Cell Core. I was just looking into them and have heard great reviews about them. They have I think it's called HM because it's heavy metals, ET, and I think the ET is environmental toxins. And that will help bind the toxins in your body and get them out. So there are a lot of great like options out there as far as detox supplements. But yeah, now that, you know, you're at a place where you're, you know, supporting your gut and, you know, eliminating and detoxing, that, you know, we do need extra support. It's, you know, like we're exposed to so much, and our bodies do a great job at keeping us as healthy as possible, but we sometimes have to show it a little extra love.
Definitely. Completely agree. Especially too, I feel like we just live so overly stressed as well with like not only what are we putting into our bodies or just coming into contact on a daily basis, but then our actual lifestyles are just so not ready. Like we're just living completely out of alignment, in my opinion, in the levels of stress and cortisol and things that kind of pump through us on a daily basis. I know that you've gone through a mind, body, kind of soul journey recently. Did you find that reducing stress in your life equally kind of tied in with everything as well?
Oh yeah, that was the missing puzzle piece to me, being able to step into my true alignment and into like my higher self, because I, you know, killed bad bacteria. Something's like still, and I quit my job. Like I was working full time in corporate, and I was like, okay, I was no longer working and, you know, pursuing my passion, but I was like, something is still off. Like I don't know. And this internship like fell into my lap. And so I signed up for a self-growth and personal development internship where I thought, you know, like I did learn about naturopathic medicine and neurofeedback and mindfulness and yoga and all of these things. But I also got therapy, and the whole mindfulness piece and sound therapy and rewiring my brain. I thought therapy was for everybody but me. Like I was like, I would tell my family, like, you need to go to therapy. If you want me to go with you, I will go with you. I like vividly remember telling them that like they need to go to therapy, but not me, because I have a corporate job. I'm happy. I can take care of myself. Like I can do all these things. But no, there was obviously a lot of underlying issues. I had no idea that was like impacting me until I started going to therapy, and I don't even think I opened up at first. And then there was a turning point that obviously something happened where maybe I just felt comfortable with her. She asked something and I just broke down, like crying. And then she was like, I knew there was more behind that smiling face. And then once we started like, you know, talking about it, I just realized that another thing, like for me, as far as like relationships. So I am never in serious long-term relationships. And there's always been a fear of me committing, to relationships. Honestly, college, like that was the only time that I was in a serious relationship. And then I dated, and then I was like, no. And so I just never gave anyone the time or day. And it was never them, but I finally realized that it's me. But I never knew why. Like I never knew why until I started digging into, childhood trauma and all of that. And it's not that I had bad parents. It's not that, they didn't, love me or take care of me or provide an amazing life for me, because they did. But it's just, I was never aligned with myself. I was never like, after college, I graduated college, I wanted to travel. But my mom was like, no, you need to get a job. So what do? I apply for a job, I get a job. And so like I was always doing, like even for college, like it was between Flagler and UCF. My mom's like, you can't go to UCF or else you're going to have to pay if you go there. And so like all of these things, which I'm actually very glad that I didn't go there. So that is like one thing because Flagler is so much more aligned my pace, especially now, than what UCF. Oh gosh, I don't even know what that would have been.
Wait,
like.
That's so funny, because I was actually considering UCF as well, because I thought that I wanted to go into hospitality event planning, and they have that, I think it's like Rosen Hospitality School. And I was convinced that like a big school was for me and whatever else. And upon choosing Flagler, I was like not completely sold on it, and actually thought freshman year I was going to transfer to UCF. And then that completely died, because Flagler was everything that I needed and more, and met my best friends like to this day. And same for you. Yeah. That's so funny.
Which is so hard to, like, that's why I don't blame any, being persuaded left or right. But I feel like I never knew what I really wanted. I was always doing what I was taught or what society has deemed as the right thing to do. Like after high school, we all go to, if we can, go to college. And then after college, you get a job. And then then you like get married, and then you have kids. And it's like and I wasn't fitting in like half of those boxes, and was fitting in some of them, but I never like knew why. And like, I was happy. Like I thought I was, and I am genuinely happy. Like when I tell people, like, it's so hard to come across as being like, I am a happy person. Like I really am. I truly am. But obviously we all have emotions. We all have sadness. We all have pain. We all have fear. Like there's all these things that I didn't allow myself to feel. And like in the long run was like, that's what was like, I knew there was that missing piece. So like now, I let myself feel all these feelings. Like I'm going to cry, I cry. Like I am human. I am going to have these emotions. And I think that's what, realizing that this isn't on anyone else but me. And now I can finally tap into that and align with myself. And then everyone else kind of benefits from that too.
Completely. It's so interesting, because as we are truly just souls having human body experiences, and in this human body, we are supposed to have emotions and feelings, and it's okay to feel the things or feel certain ways in certain situations. But at the same time, I was very similar in that I've always been traditionally a people pleaser, and always taking into consideration what others thought would be best for me or what society thought would be best for me. And while I've lived a fantastic life, I've loved every minute of it, there definitely were decisions and things that I made that were not, I wasn't making them for me. I was making them because it was maybe what I should be doing or what others were telling me I should be doing. So I totally feel that. And it's like, once you start connecting within and understanding within, it's like you never want to let go of that. And it's just so much easier now, maybe not easier, it just feels more effortless to walk through life and more confident being the person that has always been inside of you, but just actually doing life your way.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part. Honestly, changing my food was the easiest part. Doing this work is the hardest part, because again, I had quit my corporate job and my internship was only 8 to 10 hours a week. And then finally, when I hit this turning point, I looked back and I told my therapist, I was like, I finally get why I wasn't able to do, because I was like, why is my business not, more like, why isn't it here where I expected it to be a year later? And I finally got it, because it's such an emotional and it's a very taxing journey. It's not easy. No one wants to tap into pain. No one wants to. It's so much easier to forget it. and move on.
Mm-hmm. Or just avoid it and walk the other way.
Avoid it. Yeah. And I'm a huge avoider. Like I don't want confrontation. What can I do? Pleaser, avoider. Like, let me just, okay, I'll fix that. I'll do it. Whatever. Let's, and that's where my happy, what everyone thinks is my like happy self is always portraying. And it's not that we have to dig up the pain and remember it forever. We just have to dig it up enough to work through it, to then realize that is how we're responding to things today. So then it helps us grow in the future, because truly we're aligned when we're living in the present moment. So when we're thinking about the past and we're thinking about the future, we're not living presently. And that is where we get our self is like living in the present moment.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So before we close out today's episode, one of the things I like to do is end with some loving your own soul questions, as I call them, just to help our listeners get to know you a little bit better, just kind of rapid fire on the spot. But this is a perfect segue, because I think it was on Instagram recently, that you are interested in human design. So I was going to ask you if you know your type and how you think that understanding your type has given you a better understanding to your current life.
Yeah. So I'm a manifester.
Cool.
What are you?
I'm a generator.
Oh, generators. I know that they bring so much life to everyone's life. So everyone have a generator friend.
Yes.
But manifestors, oh my gosh, when I was like, I'm a manifester. And like one of my things of stepping into alignment is I want to be able to manifest. I want to align myself and I want to attract the things that I'm actually thinking, like, and so a lot of that is believing. And that is where I'm still trying to work, like really believing in that I can actually achieve that. Because I know once I do, it will get there. So I was like, oh my gosh, you are a manifester. You are like the people of all people who should be manifesting everything. So I think sometimes knowing, that information definitely does help. But there's a lot to the human design as far as channels and numbers. So I don't know much about that, but I do know, after listening to like manifestors, I know that obviously we're very creative. We get these ideas. I mean, we kind of make them. We might not necessarily make them happen, but we get the ideas and we have people help us, make them happen, which I do feel like is me. I do get a lot of ideas. And I think that's where trying to be a self-employed, I'm like, I want to do all these things and I have to start honing into on one thing, because my mind is moving. I'm like, oh, I want to do this and this. And like, I want to create, I literally have like a list of 10 things I want to do, but I can't do it all. So there's that. And then there was something else that I had heard that really resonated with me as being a manifestor, is that we do work in like spurts and like times, and we need to take breaks. And I'm like, God, that makes so much sense, because like even when I was in corporate, I would like work and then I'm like, oh, I need to go outside and like take a walk, or I need to like do this because I need to just step away for a little bit, regroup, and then like come back. I don't know if you're like huge, like if you know a lot about all of them, but I do know that it's been very fascinating and there's a lot of information, and I'm hoping to step into it more.
There's so much information out there. I know just kind of enough to scratch the surface across all the different types. But it was funny when I figured out that I was a generator, because I actually thought that I would have been a manifester, because I've always had a knack of really manifesting a lot of, it started out unknowingly manifesting a lot of things in my life. And then once I tapped into that power and surrendering to the universe and understanding that on my own journey, it really excelled from there. But upon digging deeper and understanding a generator and what lights a generator up, and really just baseline of trusting your gut, and it's either a hell yes or a hell no, and there's no in between, that resonated so much with me, kind of like we were saying before, where I felt like I've been always just very cautious of trying to make sure, okay, am I making a decision that's going to make 95% of the population happy? Perfect. That's great. And then, maybe I'll be happy like later on, versus switching that mentality and staying true to who I am and doing things that do light me up. Yeah. I've just seen radical life changes. I think what's cool about a manifestor too, my husband is actually a manifestor, is that one of the things I read is that you guys will tend to almost just kind of go off and like do your own thing without an explanation, because that's just how your brain works. And I found that to be really interesting, because I could totally see that. And same with the needing to do work a little bit, take a break, work a little bit, I'll take a break, and just all the ideas and everything. I think understanding human design, and there's so much to it, down to even eating by your human design type, which is, I haven't explored that at all. But
yeah, I know. I just heard about that. And I mean, for everyone listening, everyone can manifest and everyone can step into law of attraction. That is for everyone. But the one thing I love about human design, because like the Enneagram, like these other personality tests, you kind of have to know a little bit about yourself. And that's very hard. It's not as easy as people think, or sometimes, you think, like your symptoms, or like, yourself, but you don't until you like evolve and change. But all that to say, human design, you just need to know when you were born, where you were born, and like your birthday, and you don't have to answer any questions. And then it like tells you what you are. So it's like pretty cool.
It's so factual, especially because I feel like with a lot of those different tests as well, it can also, your results can vary per the time of life that you're in, and kind of like even sometimes of who you're aspiring to be and not who you actually are. So I feel that they can be very clouded, whereas this is a very actual highlight of who you are. And I think too, I've read that some people upon learning their human design will not agree with it or feel super unaligned with it. And that really just goes to show how far out of alignment they're actually living with their current life. And I've heard too that with human design, some of the types will actually start shifting here in the next 20 years. Like the manifesting generator only just came out, I think maybe roughly about 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. I think a little bit more than that. Maybe it's 2 decades. I'd have to check it. Yeah, kind of interesting as well as we see that
interesting
shift happen. What is your favorite morning beverage?
Ooh, I drink a lot. Probably my mushroom coffee, because I did give up coffee in general. And actually, when I reintroduced it, I realized that it gave me jitters and all of that, and it was not good. But the mushrooms in them get the benefit of the mushrooms, and I don't have any like jitters or anything like that, but there's just so many antioxidants and health benefits to them. But I just missed coffee, and so that is by far like my favorite morning drink.
Yes, same here. I gave up coffee as well, and trying to drink it again, I'm like, no way. Like my body feels so gross.
Yeah, I'm literally, Kookaburra? Their espresso is so strong. I now ask for decaf, but I literally wired and shaking, and I'm like, I was never like that before, but that's because our bodies adapt too. So my body just adapted to all that caffeine I was drinking. And yes, it's crazy, but that is my favorite morning. But I also have warm lemon water with sea salt, and like sometimes I have beet sauce. So I usually have whole bone broth. Those are like my morning concoctions.
So delicious. I love mushroom coffee as well. What is something you love to do as a child?
Well, a lot of my life revolved around dancing. So I did love dance. I did love dancing.
Cool. What, any particular type of dance or?
My favorite was modern and like more of the contemporary.
Cool. Love it. What has been your favorite wellness trend over time?
Oh my goodness. I love everything that I'm doing. The wellness. I don't know. I do have a passion for toxins. So in general, having like a lower tox life, and like I feel like that is becoming more of a trend. Like people realizing that toxins are a thing that we need to be aware of. So I guess that is one of my, because to me, it's kind of like my easy way of saying, well, that does encompass food. That does encompass like it basically encompasses overall health. So. And I would like to say the toxic people that are in our life. So, living that lower tox life.
Oh, that's so, I never thought of it that way too with relationships, but it really is.
Yeah. The toxic relationship we have with ourselves. So all of that.
Cool. This might be a similar question a little bit, but what is one thing that you're most curious about right now? Whether something you've read or someone told you or...
I feel like a lot of the things that I'm saving for myself to read up on is 5G. So I know a lot about, obviously how our body is interfered with food and toxins. But as far as EMFs, and now with 5G coming out, it is something that I want to be able to like dive in. I know it is most likely not good, but I want to, know what the research has been done on it, if, any, and what impact that has on us.
Cool. When did your exploration to diving deeper into your own soul first begin, and how has it evolved since then?
That started September of 2019, and that has definitely evolved over the past like 7 months. So what is now April? I did end that internship in April, and I feel like that was like my month of kind of like aha moments too. But I definitely, again, went into it knowing something was missing in my life, and that I was, pretty healthy as far as everything else. But it wasn't until I was finally able to express all the emotions, feel all the emotions. It was never easy. I cried multiple times. I even shared some of it on like social media. I did therapy. I talked to friends way more, and they heard more about my story and journey. I went to Al-Anon. So all of these things, I think, and I read books. So there's so many ways that, we can do like personal growth, and even like these personality tests and just understanding myself. I just feel like I have a better sense of who I am, what makes me happy, what doesn't make me happy, what makes me angry, and to have a conversation about it, because we're all going to agree on some things. We're going to disagree, but having like a healthy conversation, that has been the hardest part. Because again, I've been an avoider. That's the thing, is I've always been an avoider. So to not avoid things that make me uncomfortable, which they make me very uncomfortable, but it actually is making me more comfortable in the long run.
I love that. What an interesting evolution too, of how it just kind of twists itself. The journey is a wild ride. It's definitely not easy, but it's so well worth it.
Yes. Especially it's been like 3 years now. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So that's why this is another thing, like every diet, that we do, or like every diet that I did, it was always like quick fix, let me track macros now, or let's change, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And this is not a quick fix. Like this is long-term. This is, it's never, if someone, comes to me and saying that I want to, fix X, Y, Z, I'm like, okay, that, like this is 3 months is minimum just to start feeling, these changes. But then this takes people, like I don't know anyone who hasn't been on a health journey that hasn't taken years.
That it really never ends either. I mean, even just looking at it from like a spiritual perspective, like Gabby Bernstein, somebody who's such a highly regarded spiritual teacher, she talks in so many of her books of how she is still going through things. Like you would consider her someone who's very enlightened, and she must have no problems and she's figured it all out. But she says all the time, like she gets triggered by certain things and has to go back in and keep uncovering the layers. And health full circle. It never ends.
No, but it's all a journey. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's not easy, but it's definitely worth it.
I completely agree. Well, Jess, thank you so much for jumping on here with me today. This was such a gift. So much information was shared, and I just loved connecting with you and your journey. Wow, I wasn't kidding, right? How good was that episode? Jess knows so much information, so many different theories. I learned some new things today, which is always fun. I hope all of you learned some new things today and can hopefully better understand your own health, maybe have a new perspective, some things you need to look into. Definitely don't be scared or rattled by anything that we spoke about on here. It's all great to have awareness in so many of these areas, as it is so important to really have our own grasp on our health and our lives, and really just everything that embodies our daily lifestyle. So it's our life. So we should know what we're doing, what we're ingesting, what is around us, and all things in general. But that was super fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. If you did enjoy our conversation today, like I mentioned earlier, if you feel called to, feel free to rate and review this podcast, screenshot it, and send me an email to lovingyourownsoul@gmail.com, and in exchange I will give you my plant-based recipe ebook, and will also enter you into a giveaway to win a gift basket of some of my favorite brands. So just some fun things to show my gratitude for all of your love and support during this time. I so appreciate it, and thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you on the next journey.